This is Sandra Hess, Executive Director of the Calaveras Winegrape Alliance. Happy to be back with you all here for Session 5 in the Calaveras History of Wine. And today we have some wonderful special guests with us, so let's get right into introductions.
Hello, we're Dre and Nate, and we are Stevenot Winery. And it's a pleasure to be here today. Great to see everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us. It looks like you're sitting at your beautiful tasting room there in Murphy's. Can't wait to get back there someday.
We're so excited to open it up and get back to normal. But
Yes.
yeah, it's been great. All our people have been supporting us so well along the way. So can't wait to reopen our showroom again.
Wonderful. And we have Ron from Prospect 772. Welcome.
Hi, Sandra. How you doing?
Good. Great to see you. And our friends out at Aloria Vineyard. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Sherry, and this is Rob.
What a beautiful day it is there in wine country. So happy you can be with us. Thank you. So let's begin at the beginning. I always like to open up these interview questions when we think about the history of Calaveras wine with learning about your personal histories. So what brought each of you to the Calaveras wine region? And
Yeah, my story getting to this county was a little different than others, I would say. I followed a woman here and ended up falling in love with the woman, but then also the town and the charm of Murphy's in Calaveras County. And I moved here from Colorado, which is absolutely beautiful place, and didn't quite think I could ever find something to match. But as soon as I got here, it was just love at first sight, and just the energy and magic of this area is what really caught me.
I was wine tasting with a friend, and I'd never even heard of Murphy's. And she brought me here, and I fell in love with the town. I grew up in the military, and so I always believed that home is where you are. We moved around a lot. And here in Murphy's, I felt the feeling of what home feels like for the first time. And then later that day, I met my future husband and moved here about 8 years ago.
I guess for me and Wendy, it was serendipity. We were involved in another piece of property up in on the Sonoma coast, and we ran into some difficulties with easements. And then we sold that property and answered an ad here, and looked at a couple of properties, and kind of was taken with the whole area in Murphy's, California, and the property and the how reasonable the prices were to buy land, and thought we'd make a go of it up here.
so what year was that, Ron?
That was 2001 when we finally signed the papers here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then Nate and Dre, what year was it for you that you made Murphy's your home?
I moved here in 1998, and then got into the wine business the next year in 1999.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was 2012.
Great. All right. And so another family of the Calaveras wine region, Sherry and Rob, I'd love to hear about your journey up this way.
We're pretty new up here. We moved up in 2018 officially. We've been coming up here for 10 years, and originally we're from the Silicon Valley area, Santa Cruz Mountains, where we did a lot of wine tasting and things like that. We were looking for other areas to go to. Actually, we found kind of Twisted Oak online, and their concerts and their rubber chickens and things like that. That's one of the first things that actually brought us here. Kind of fell in love with the town, and fast forward today, and now we're here.
Well, we started by visiting, and we'd stay in the hotels and go wine tasting, and then we had an RV, and we would plant our RV out in Angels Camp, and then we ended up buying a cabin in Arnold because we were just like, we came up here almost every weekend. We loved it so much. It was a new adventure every single time we were here. And so officially at the vineyard, it was 2018, but it was about a year before that where we really started planting our roots.
So, in my previous interviews, it's been wonderful to hear about the pioneering spirit of the Calaveras wine families. Going back to Barton Stevenot, talking about Chuck Hovey, so many people involved in this pioneering process of what it is today at now 40 tasting rooms. So Ron, as we continue on this path forward, learning about your unique history of Prospect 772 in Calaveras Wine Country, share with us what that's like.
Well, and going back to coming here to Calaveras County, that, our name Prospect 772 comes from the promise and possibilities of what this land had to offer. And I think that is, what Calaveras County had to offer is this great frontier. But in doing that, we had a conversation with David Gates from Ridge, and he suggested that Grenache would grow really well in this area. And consequently, I met Scott Clan and hired Mark Skimfield to put in the vineyard. And Scott and Mark both came down to Rosenblum, and we did a Grenache tasting with the winemaker at Rosenblum, Jeff Cohn, myself, Kent Rosenblum, John Kane, and a number of other people in the cellar, and Scott and Mark. And I saved all of our notes. So these are the wines that we tasted that day, and we tasted 12 different wines from around the world, from French, Spanish, and Australian Grenaches. And that's something that I remember during those years, is that there was a really a big interest in French varietals, Spanish varietals coming into the county. I think that's something that was new and innovative for that time in 2001. And that's when a lot of these vineyards got planted, the Twisted Oak and our vineyard. And the Stangs came in after that and planted a huge Spanish varietal planting down here on the corner. So anyway, it was really interesting. I just want to point this out just to give Scott a little dig. Here's Scott's notes from that.
Can we zoom in on those?
Yeah, there's not a word to be written there. It's all numbers. And we continue to do tastings like this, and you can see how he gets a lot more verbose in his wording as he does tastings with us. It was really kind of fun. It was a fun time, and so anyway, I just wanted to share that with you.
I love those rich stories, and I just envision you all getting together back in 2001 and this excitement that you must have felt about the prospect of planting Grenache, of going more into these Rhone style varietals and what this were going to turn out to be like. And, going back to the Barton Stevenot spirit, I love the story that Stu told, or who was it that said it? Oh, it was Kate and Scott about, questioning if a varietal could grow in Calaveras County. And it was like, what, don't worry about it. It's going to grow.
Yeah.
According to Barton. And I love that spirit of exploration, trying things out. Good for you. Thank you, Ron.
I have one more story to share with you.
Yes.
Also, in doing some of these tastings, I remember we had this one night where I think it was Scott, myself, I think Jeff Cohn came up from Rosenblum, Jeff Skye, Brian Clausen, and a couple of other people, and we did a tasting of Syrah. And one of Brian's comments, it was hilarious because we do all these tastings blind when we did them and let the comments flow. And one of Brian's comments were, this is just the typical pseudo Southern Côte Rôtie bullshit that, type of wine that I think is pandering or something like that. And it turns out later on it was a wine that Brian put into the tasting, and Brian goes, "Oh yeah, I like that wine. I'm going to use those comments." And it was hilarious,
You should have used that for the wine description. So thank you for that, Ron. What a fun couple of stories to share. And again, I love that you named your brand Prospect 772 after this prospecting spirit of Calaveras Gold Country. So
it's the promise and possibilities.
So why don't we talk a little bit about your innovative approaches you've each taken in how you've helped build the wine community? Maybe
I would say it was to originally go back to the beginning of my winemaking career was in 1999. I started out under one of the pioneers, Dave Olson, which I've heard in a few of the other commentaries, and learned from Dave my original. It was actually kind of a funny story. I answered an ad in the paper, and It was middle of July, extremely hot. I'd been pouring concrete. That's what I did for a living before wine, and been pouring concrete all day, and came in dirty into the 60-degree cellar in the back of Black Sheep, and had my formal interview. And I was told I would be cleaning floors, scrubbing tanks, having to work really hard. But the whole time I was learning and hearing all of my tasks, I just had the hugest big grin on my face and couldn't believe that I would actually get to work in a 60-degree cellar. And then, from the very beginning, I absolutely loved the wine business, everything about it. But at that point, it didn't quite pay the bills. So I still had to work construction on the side. And just slowly over time, I worked for Black Sheep as well as Stevenot, the original Stevenot, before they went before they changed hands. And at that point is when I started Vina Moda, and I said, I want to have my own security. I want to, if I make it, great. If I don't, it's all on me, and I won't have to rely on anybody else. And so that was my original thought of starting in this business. And throughout going through the business, I've studied under Dave Olson and Chuck Hovey, as well as, I would say, my most important mentor was Mike Farmer from Opus One in Napa. And through all that, I learned so many different styles and techniques. And I felt very fortunate to work at so many different places. So I wasn't stuck in one rut of this is how you make wine and this is the only way. And I feel like that's really helped me be innovative and started to learn some of the barrel programs and some of what at Opus, they're half Mondavi, half Rothschild. So I got to learn the way the French do things to the way the Americans do things, and then just kind of develop my own style through that. So a lot of my innovation now comes from a good barrel program, really good connections with the vineyards in this county, along like Rob and Sherry's vineyard, beautiful place. And that's how I've become innovative and created my own style in the wine business.
And I think it's really important too to note that Nate's really great about taking traditional techniques, like we hand sort all of our fruit, but then taking it to the next level of innovation, such as experimenting with lots of different yeasts. So if we're making one type of wine, we're not going to necessarily just use one type of yeast with that wine. And he is really great about pushing the line of innovation and really trusting his instincts to be able to make a wine that's definitely his signature style.
Like wine for also, you have your own label there, Vina Moda, but you've done wonderful things for others.
Yeah, right now, currently, I'm making wine for 6 different wineries, and Aloria, Rob and Sherry Hendricks, they are one of the vineyards that I'm making wine for at this point, consulting with them and bringing up a new assistant winemaker now to eventually be the winemaker. So it's been great. I'm working with Aloria now, Euclid out of Napa, Villa Vallecito, La Rosa, Naragi, and Vina Moda.
So you're just a little busy.
A little bit. But it's been really nice because I'm getting to learn all these. I sit with the owners and I drink wine with the owners, and I get to see their palate and their style and what they're wanting to accomplish. And it really helps me out to make a good product for them and help them be unique and not have everything just fall together as the same overall recipe.
That must be, when you think about like a chef, and an artist being able to pick and pull from different palettes or flavor profiles, and you have all these years in the Calaveras County wine region with access to so many different vineyards and styles of varietals. And it must feel like that in some ways to you, like kind of like being a chef.
It is for sure. I would rather be a winemaker than a chef.
I hear that. The hours are pretty crazy on both, but yeah, I hear that. There's a trade-off for each, right?
But it's very nice because I get to be in vineyards like Aloria Vineyards there, and just gorgeous places. And I do feel like I have a step up on a lot of people because I do see all the vineyards in this area from making wine for so many different places. I've pretty much seen every vineyard except for Ron's beautiful vineyard, because he uses all his own fruit. But I live right up the road from Ron, so I get to pass his vineyard every day.
So I hear you. So Ron, Nate talks about you being neighbors and obviously your journey to Calaveras County. I mean, you come from Rosenblum Cellars. And so when I think about innovations in this way, would you like to share with us, some things that you're doing different?
Well, doing different now compared to what we were trying to do when we moved up here. I don't think we really brought anything new to the growing community at that time. Everybody was kind of moving along with the modern trellis systems and using rootstocks and different clones and things like that. So when we planted our vineyard, we were looking at doing the same thing. And then in terms of our winemaking style, I think when we started, the one thing that we might have been a little bit innovative on is that we kind of pushed the limits of picking maturities. We picked pretty ripe. And if I remember correctly, back in 2001, 2003, or through that time period when I was tasting the wines up here, the ripeness, I think the way that we picked wine was that our style was a little bit more ripe than most. And we probably got a little pushback from that. But coming from Rosenblum Cellars, we weren't shy about making ripes and Mindels. And, before we came up here, I got introduced to Syrah, and that was my whole goal and my interest was having the passion to make Syrah and wanted to grow that. Syrah is kind of a strange varietal too. You can grow Syrah in a cool climate and make a completely different animal than what I'm making currently here. Whereas in a hot climate, you can make this really ripe style Syrah. And they're both beautiful wines, but Syrah is this interesting grape that you're not pigeoned into a cool climate or a hot climate. You can make it in both. And August Klopp, we had a conversation once when I was in France, and it was really interesting. He told me, he goes, when you're in certain areas, when you're in a cool climate, you need to strive for power because you can make elegant wines in a cool climate. And then when you're in a hot climate, you need to strive for elegance. And that always kind of stuck with me. So we make powerful wines, but we try to finesse the fermentations with our barrel programs and with our yeasts and to make wines that are a little bit more elegant. So that was something that came to me from August Klopp, talking to him, and tried to bring that to the county.
Well, you do make powerful wines with elegant finishes, as we know. This last February, you celebrated each of these brands, wonderful scores from Wine Enthusiast this spring. And so congratulations. And it was a pleasure for me to recognize you all, but also taste the wines that you've been releasing. So Sherry and Rob, speaking of award-winning wines and the vineyard that you're sitting there at today, can you share with us, your approach, your vision, first of all, with what you've done for that beautiful vineyard? I've had the luxury now twice of touring your vineyard space, and it's just remarkable to see what you've done there.
Thank you. When Rob and I came here, we had a vision. We saw this beautiful place. We knew that we had something really special. We approached Steve Cullum, who is our vineyard manager. We asked his opinion right at the start before we even signed the dotted lines. Should we buy this place? And he said, yes, you should buy this place. And I said, well, gee, it has a lot of Syrah, which I was excited about because I really, really wanted a sparkling Syrah. I had a sparkling Syrah at Bonnie Doon in Santa Cruz that I fell in love with. And I was like, great, that's the first thing I would like to do. So achieve that goal. We do have our sparkling Syrah. We have 52 acres of grapes. 30 acres of it are Syrah. And I fell in love with the Spanish varietals here in Calaveras County. And I was like, I would like to graft some varietals to the vineyard. And so we've done a lot of grafting. We started with 7 varietals, and we now have 12, including a Charbono we have Toro Tempranillo. We have Albarino, which is my baby. I have it right here. And what else did we put? So we've done a lot of grafting. Verdejo. Oh my gosh. And that's kind of a fun thing. It's so neat to be sitting here having this chat with Nate, and his wines are just phenomenal. But when he came in and he offered his time and his expertise to make wine, help us out and make wine for us, I'm throwing in Verdejo and Albarino and all these wines that he hadn't made yet. And so that was really, really fun to work with Nate with that. And I feel like Rob and I, we are dreamers and inventors at heart. We want solar out here. We want to, the vineyard is already certified California Sustainable Vineyard, which I'm extremely proud of. We're very proud to have the Noma Cork, which is won an award last year for being the innovative
product of the year.
The year.
It's a sugarcane based cork.
It's a sugarcane based cork. No corked wine with these. Do you want to speak?
And with the kind of the diversity of our, we have 12 varietals we're going for. We wanted to be kind of all estate grown, so we're growing our own grapes, making our own wine out of it. We wanted to have a wide variety, so people come into the tasting room will find something they like.
We say that a wine for every palate, and also, we have, like you were saying, Sandra, that's a perfect description to say, we feel like the diversity here, even within our own vineyard, we can grow just about anything, Barbera. We grabbed, the first graft was Barbera. I can't believe I forgot that. Anyways, we find this to be an artist palette, and that's where our innovation lies. It's just in our dreaming and our curiosity and always wanting to learn.
Going back to the history of your vineyard, when was that vineyard first planted?
Originally, I think 1996 is when it first planted. Dr. Renner owned this property. The Courts family, owned most of this peninsula at one point with a partnership with a couple other people. And Dr. Renner kind of married into that family and wanted to plant a big Syrah vineyard. And he did that. He planted a lot of Syrah out here. I think between 96 and maybe 2001 or so is when all the vines went in. I think their first vintage was in 2002 or 2003, somewhere around there. Anthony Bell and Bell Wine Cellars made their first wine. And a lot of folks, Nate has history out here as the winemaker. Brett from Mineral.
There's a rich history at that vineyard. You have one of the same vineyard crews working with you there at Aloria.
Well, but that's Vicente Lopez. Yes, he and Stephen Cullum work together, and he takes a lot of pride working here, and we really love working with Vicente. And he once told me that out where our Viognier is, that he said that was once Nebbiolo, and he planted it. So it's kind of fun. Yeah.
I mean, that is fun when you think about Vicente and the years that he has had to nurture that vineyard and to see the progression throughout the history of Calaveras Wine Country. I think it's
about the Aloria Vineyard is, which used to be Canterbury.
Yes.
There's a state of California gave that little small peninsula its own zoning, and so that little peninsula of Aloria, as well as Villa Vallecito, is zoned a Mediterranean climate, which means it's 5 degrees warmer in the wintertime, 5 degrees cooler in the summer, and it's just its own unique microclimate. It ripens faster than any other vineyard in the county. All my first fruit always comes from either Villa Vallecito or Aloria.
History interviews, but we learn a lot from our history together. And as we think about our present journey in Calaveras Wine Country and protecting the uniqueness of that beautiful wine region, family run, and very focused on community and community building, what would be your vision or maybe your wishes for the future of Calaveras Wine Country?
One of the people that really inspired me here when we started was a chef named Bob Anderson. And I came up here and I met Bob, and he has a passion for food that is not unlike what a lot of us winemakers have with what we're growing and what we're doing. So Bob Anderson has been a great inspiration for me to do the best I can with our wines to pair with foods. And we all are in this because we love food and wine, especially together. And if I was to think about where I'd like to see this county go, or my hopes for the future, is that we continue to inspire creative winemakers and creative chefs to come up and ground themselves in this community. And that is going to raise the level and the bar for everybody in both the wine industry and the tourist industry and in our restaurants also.
One of the things, being someone who came here wine tasting, who had never heard of Murphy's before, one of the things that I loved so much was that feeling of being at home and being so welcomed by everyone that I met. And then visiting for a year and getting to know people, getting to know the community, and then finally moving up here. There's just something really, really special and unique about Calaveras and Murphy's specifically that just makes me feel like we've traveled back in time to some degree. The way people greet each other and are so friendly, and the way people are so welcoming. When we visited Spain a couple of years ago, one of the things that we learned is that they receive people as though they're gifts. And I feel like we've really nailed that in Calaveras, that we do receive people so well. And my dream for Calaveras is to grow, but to maintain that really special feeling, so that when people come here, they feel so welcomed.
And just to add on to that feeling, it's always reminded me of Cheers. And when Norm walks in, and I love that about our area and our community. I like going into a restaurant and knowing everybody, and going to a wine event and getting to catch up with all my peers. And so I just reiterating what Dre said and Ron said, I love the sense of community, and I hope we maintain that.
Yes, a lot of the same sentiment. I mean, we came up here and we felt so welcomed. It's so neat again to hear Nate and Dre, because one time we were in Sonora and we saw Nate at Lowe's or something, and as we were wine club members, and he remembered us, and we were like, oh my gosh, how did he know who we were? This was a long time ago, that we remembered how welcomed we felt, and we want to continue that. Our place is a fun place to come visit. It's an adventure each time that you come visit us. Well, my dad was living up here in Angels Camp, and my dad said, share. Every time Rob and I would come up and visit, he said, share. I want you to meet my new friend. And so when we went to visit my dad, he's like, hey, he's here. He made wine like you are going to. And we sat down with this friend of my dad's, and it turned out to be Chuck Hovey. And so I got to have a really nice conversation with him. And I said, at the end, do you have any advice for us? And he said, have fun. And that is, it gives me the goosebumps now. I'll just never forget that. And
her background as kind of a teacher also, we like this to kind of be a place of study. We want people to come out here and learn about the vineyard, students, conduct experiments, and I like to do some experiments in the winery building, ways of aging, things like that. It's kind of what our future looks like.
And Rob, your engineering background also, I just think it's so interesting how complementary you two are, with the education, the teaching background, and your background in engineering, where there's like that constant desire to learn and to test and to experiment. And I love how you bring in your visitors into that, also that space of exploring. So thank you for all that you do, all of you, for the Calaveras Wine Country. And, previous discussions, I hear a lot about common themes. It takes a lot of guts to be a part of the Calaveras Wine Country and start something new and be innovative and do things differently. It takes a lot of spirit. It takes a lot of passion, entrepreneurial, spirit and such. And so I think each of you today in this interview have shared with me those aspects, and I'm just delighted to be a part of this discussion with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.